In 1953, Onassis devised a plan so audacious that it threatened to turn the multinational oil industry on its head.
He found out that he was in conflict with the policy of the oil companies, the major oil companies, the Seven Sisters, because they would build their own ships and they would only charter independent carriers from time to time. As he wrote once in a letter, he felt like a taxi driver who saw that all his customers would buy their own cars. So he wanted a piece of the cake.
Ever since the Americans struck oil in Saudi Arabia, Aramco, the great consortium of American petroleum companies, controlled everything from drilling to refining. Onassis took an offer to the new and inexperienced king. He asked the king to let him ship an ever-increasing share of Saudi crude. In return, he promised to build a fleet of oil tankers flying the Saudi flag. The Jeddah deal would have enabled him to dictate world freight rates for oil.
Had the deal of Jeddah been successful for Onassis, he would have become the richest man in the world. Because there was no limit for his profits, because he would get more and more percentages from the Saudi Arabian government. It was actually a threat to the other governments and a threat to the other ship owners.
There was a secret meeting in London after the news leaked out. Onassis's great rival, Stavros Niarchos, had hired someone to scuttle the Jeddah deal. The man he met at Claridge's hotel was a high-level fixer and troubleshooter. This is the first time that Robert Aimé Mayhew has told his full story on television.
They detested each other. There's no doubt that the personal element was what enhanced the enthusiasm to kill, but it was survival. No, he truly felt threatened from a business point of view. The first thing you know, if you allow this to continue, there is no market for any competitor.
As a former FBI agent, Mayhew was able to place a bug on Onassis because he convinced the intelligence community that the Jeddah deal was a threat to US national security.
It just happened that a week before I was hired by Niarchos, CIA had placed me on a monthly retainer to handle sensitive assignments for them. As a consequence, now we really have a built-in ally. They made their communication system available to me throughout the world. And we made life for Mr. Onassis more difficult.
To put it mildly.
To put it mildly.
Mayhew activated his political contacts in Washington. He started at the top.
What happened is that we were able to have an appointment with the Vice President of the United States. Mr. Nixon was Vice President at the time, and he immediately recognized that this is something that should be immediately presented to the National Security Council. After thanking him, and on the way out, he said, if you have to kill this son of a bitch, don't do it on American shores.
Mayhew struck his next blow at a shipyard in Germany.
Well, the first super tanker that was being built specifically for this deal was at Hamburg, and it was to be named after the king, the then king. And we realized that we could never stop the agreement if that first shipment was allowed to take place. And as a consequence, in a fight for time, we managed to organize a strike at the shipyard in Hamburg.
So you organized it?
I did through some of my operators, and also with the help of CIA.
Despite everything, Onassis finished his ship. He even invited American oil executives to attend her launch. Onassis knew that if they refused his invitation, it would be an insult to the Saudi king, after whom the ship was named. Mayhew devised a new means of attack.
We felt quite sure that his financial structure was very, very weak, and that if we could cause him a major problem, that his whole house of cards would collapse. We knew that his fleet had the experience of fishing in illegal waters off Peru. As a consequence, we made arrangements with the Peruvian government to seize his fleet.
They sent out ships, they sent out an aircraft which actually bombed around the factory ship. They certainly strafed it with machine gun fire, and they forced the boat back into harbour with the catchers. And the Peruvians were very nasty about it. They said, you're going to pay a huge fine, we want $3 million to let you go again.
And the night that happened, we had a big banquet thinking that we now had killed the monster. Much to our amazement, we soon learned that he had this whole thing booked with Lloyd's of London, if you please, including his potential profit.
He got $15 million in insurance money and $30,000 a day for all the time that he was out of the whaling operation. I mean, he just made an enormous amount of money out of it. So he was just laughing all the way to the bank.
He came out richer than before without having to work as hard.
In the end, a Swiss court ruled in favor of the big oil companies. Onassis had to back off the Jeddah deal. By then, big oil had almost brought him to his knees.
The American oil companies they're no angels. They're far more unscrupulous than any Greek ship, whatever it was. They went after him. Why would they allow Onassis to make all the profits with the Arabs when they were doing it themselves? They had ships too, and they were afraid that Onassis might up the freights of his ships when they were carrying their oil, which was coming to them. Well, they all gang together in a concerted effort to frustrate the deal, politically, financially, and otherwise. First of all, they would not charter the ships. The Onassis fleet was boycotted. Secondly, they would look into the charter parties which were in existence for loopholes in order to frustrate and jeopardize the deal. And also by protesting to the Saudi government and doing a big fuss.
So this was a very bad situation for Onassis and his fleet, because suddenly he was obliged to lay up the highest number of his fleet.
As his rivals snapped up the charter contracts he had lost, Onassis began talking to his bankers. Then help came from an unexpected quarter.
Riding a new crest of popularity is President Gamal Abdel Nasser, Egypt's clever, ambitious strongman. In Suez, he has created a crisis and an emotional weapon to stir the passions of 23 million Egyptians.
Gamal Abdel Nasser had nationalized the Suez Canal, the vital waterway for the world's oil tankers. Believing their national interests were at stake, Britain and France went to war. Cairo fell swiftly. Egypt's army was defeated, but the West paid a price. Sunken ships blocked the canal, so Middle Eastern oil had to travel round the Cape, twice as far. Twice as many oil tankers were now needed. Only one man had a fleet of ships with not enough to do, and he was Aristotle Onassis.
When the Suez Canal closed down, we had a 65,000-ton tanker which made one trip from Persian Gulf to UK or Northern Europe and earn $6.5 million.